Hi, I'm Bill Doherty, and I want to welcome the viewers to another edition of Bill's Bullpen. Bill's Bullpen is a program that's intended to give the viewers some sense of what's going on locally, both here in Bourne and also in the region. And with me today is my great and good friend, Tommy Cahir, the head of the Cape Cod Regional Transportation Authority.
Hi, Bill. Nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Yes, it has. And matter of fact, that's one of the problems as as time goes on, is you not lose your connection, but sometimes you don't make the effort to keep those connections going.
Well, you certainly did a lot during your career as a county commissioner, and all the things you did down in Howard and serving on our RTA board. And
I really miss that.
well, your fingerprints are all over a lot of the good things that we do.
Okay, well, in any case, I think that it's important for people to know, first of all, a lot of people are not aware of how extensive the transportation network is on Cape Cod. And perhaps, we could lead in by telling folks what that is.
Well, there are 15 regional transit authorities in the Commonwealth, and our jurisdiction includes just Cape Cod, Barnstable County, 400 square miles approximately, 15 communities. We provided about 1.6 million trips a year, pre-pandemic.
Say that again.
1.6 million trips a year. Pre-pandemic, the pandemic obviously changed things where ridership diminished for a year, but it's slowly climbing back, and we're about 66-67% of our ridership in 2019 now. So we have 7 fixed route services, hourly service that go all through every community on the Cape. Up here in the Upper Cape, we have the Bourne Run and the Sandwich Run and the Sea Line that runs out of Falmouth and Woods Hole to Hyannis. So you can now get to wherever you need to go on Cape Cod in a much more efficient manner. Plus, we've introduced some new technology called Smart Dart. It's a app-based transportation service where you can get an app and call on us, and we can come and get you within 20 minutes to a half an hour and take you to where you need to go within a region. The idea is for short trips, so to get you to our fixed route service, so that will take you at a longer distance. But we just unveiled that about 8 or 10 months ago, and it's a pilot in Barnstable right now and Yarmouth, but we're going to introduce it in October in Falmouth and Dennis, and hopefully by the end of the year have it all across the Cape, because it's been extremely popular. People are using it, and it really can take cars off the road and be a very efficient manner to get you to where you need to go, appointments and the like. So we've got a lot of things going on, a lot of exciting things happening, and hopefully transportation is going to continue to get better. People were a little bit, I think, during the height of the pandemic, and it still is lingering, but during the height, people were hesitant to get into trains and get onto boats and get into buses. But studies have indicated that it's safe to get onto a bus. And we did social distancing. We require masks still, but our drivers are trained better than any other drivers around. And so I think everybody that takes our service always says how much they enjoy it and how nice they were treated. And we also have the Cape Flyer train. That's our train that we pay the operating cost. And we have a south side of the canal stop in Bourne that we introduced 2 or 3 years ago. And
where is that stop in Bourne?
It's right under the Bourne Bridge.
Okay.
It's right under the Bourne Bridge. And I've met that train every Friday night for nine years. Every Friday I meet the train and greet the passengers as they get off. And I'm always impressed with the genuine enthusiasm expressed by the riders about not only how the concessionaires were treated, but just the whole experience of the scenic vistas on the way down primarily from Middleborough to the Cape, and then through Sandwich even to Hyannis. So, that's another mode of transportation that has been slow to come back, but our ridership on the Flyer this summer was about 60% of all the previous years, which is exceeded the performance of the commuter rail across the Commonwealth. So, we're doing everything as well as we can do, and we've got great people on my team that expresses enthusiasm every day about making a difference and making positive change and improving transportation, as you well know, being a former board member.
Well, one of the things that I made a point of doing when I was a board member was to actually use it once in a while, because I thought it was very important, if you're on that kind of a board, you should really be reporting from your own experience. And I never identified myself, and I must say, I never had a bad experience, and I was always impressed with how thoughtful and how supportive all the drivers were, especially since there was in the times that that I wrote it, there was a lot of support for people who had to make appointments who were both physically, who were physically disabled. And I remember several times when I was taking the service to, let's say, to observe, that the driver would get out and go up to the door and help that passenger get from the door to the bus, and also on the reverse as well.
Well, Bill, it's I hear that kind of story literally every week. I get an email about how our driver went the extra mile, not literally, but to help them out with bags from groceries or whatever it is. I hear that constantly, and we're recognized in the state, as you might recall. The Secretary of Transportation and others, continue to point to us as being the leader in terms of the RTAs across the Commonwealth and how well we do things, fiscally responsible. Locally we had George Slade, who's a selectman here in the town of Bourne, who was our CFO for a number of years,
Mm-hmm.
and very, very fiscally prudent, kept us in line, made sure that we invested wisely. And now we have Henry Swiniarski, who succeeded him, who's just as good. But George is also still now a vice chairman of our board,
Mm-hmm.
and so has been very helpful and provided a lot of input in terms of how we can improve transit within the region of the Upper Cape, and particularly in Bourne and Buzzards Bay, where Buzzards Bay we're doing a lot of really interesting things.
Like what?
Well, having been in this community for a long time and actually representing Bourne for 14 years in the legislature, I've seen a lot of things change. And, ever since Route 25 came to the Bourne Bridge,
Mm-hmm.
the village of Buzzards Bay became somewhat blighted. And everybody that ran for any office, selectman, state rep, would say, well, we're going to revitalize Buzzards Bay.
It's coming back.
Well, I'll tell you, I give tremendous credit to many of the leaders in Bourne over the last 7, 8, 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
because they've slowly but surely really improved that village and done a lot of extraordinary things. And, I've tried to extend the commuter rail from Middleborough to Buzzards Bay, and I think for sure if the pandemic wasn't here, we would be able to do it now in my conversations with the secretary. But ridership on commuter rail is lower than any other mode. So if we were to introduce that commuter rail today, there probably wouldn't be very good ridership, and it wouldn't reflect well on the effort. Although I'm just speaking off the top of my head now from conversations I've had with the secretary. But a lot of the development in Buzzards Bay, the Keystone and the Hampton Inn and a lot of other exciting new development opportunities that have occurred there, are conducive to transit-oriented development, where you can live there and you don't need a vehicle. You can get to our transit services
Mm-hmm.
very efficiently. We'll come right to your house, pick you up, come right to the building, and we're doing that. We increased the frequency of our Buzzards Bay enhancements significantly, so that every half hour a transit bus goes through the village of Buzzards Bay, stops at key locations where you don't need a car. You can get wherever you need to go on Cape Cod. And if you look on the half hour, every 20 to 40 minutes, buses are now moving around Buzzards Bay and then going on to Sagamore, Market Basket, going on to Hyannis, going to Falmouth. So we've...
And Mashpee Commons, because the bus goes by my house.
Yes.
In
Yes.
Cotumet, and it's marked, Mashpee Commons. So if I wanted to, I could, go to Mashpee Commons, and of course I could go. If I had the money, I could go to some of those stores there too.
Well, you could go anywhere. But another key to the Buzzards Bay effort is the Mass Maritime Academy. You've got 1,600 cadets. The last time I talked to Admiral McDonald, that's a lot of students,
Mm-hmm.
and not a majority, but a significant number of those cadets come from the metropolitan Boston area. And if you have commuter rail coming from Boston to the campus,
Mm-hmm.
you address a major problem for many years with parking where the cadets park. They've talked about building parking garages. Those things are very expensive. But if we had commuter rail, that's one of the arguments that the secretary recognizes as a benefit. So I think eventually we're going to get commuter rail down there, but in the interim, we've enhanced our transit opportunities to let people try our public transportation, get to wherever they need to go on Cape Cod, and you can even connect with GATRA and get anywhere else in the state. We have a hospital bus that goes to 18 Boston hospitals Monday through Friday, starts in Wellfleet, stops in Sagamore. Our Buzzards Bay service meets that bus in Buzzards Bay in Sagamore. So we've got a lot of things going on. We've just invested in having a whole new website done. We did a survey which indicated that most of our patrons, most of our customers look at our website to find out, as everybody does nowadays, they look to see what services are available, how they can benefit from our transit services. And so we went to a California company that's renowned nationally for their transit development of websites. And it's been 3 months we've been working with them. They've flown out here this weekend to take pictures of the summer service, and we're going to have that up and running. Our website already is pretty informative and easy to navigate, but our new website's going to have the bells and whistles, be very simple to understand, know exactly how to get on our buses, what it can do for you. You know, it's all accessible and it's all affordable. As you know, our services are relatively cheap compared to...
I think it was like $2 for non-seniors and $1 for seniors.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know about transfer services, but there's, when we're speaking about money, I have a Charlie card, and my Charlie card was issued by your office, and I don't know if people are aware of that. And a Charlie card is something that's very helpful when you get up to Boston, and especially if you're a senior and you want to spend some time in Boston. You can take a combination of the service that you offer, connect with either P&B or Peter Pan, get up to Boston, get off in the city, and then use a Charlie card to get around, get around the city itself. So there's really no need of you worrying about going up to Boston. And the last time I parked in Boston for 4 hours, it cost me $60.
Yeah.
It was, that, what?
Yeah, well, that's something I've worked on for over a decade, is having a seamless transfer from Logan Airport to get on the Silver Line, to get on the commuter rail, to get onto an RTA bus, to get onto a steamship ferry. So you get wherever you need to go on the Cape and Islands in a seamless transfer way with a card that doesn't require cash and all the other stuff that you used to use.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think the intention was you were going to evolve into being able to use the Charlie card on the RTA. Has that happened yet?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you can transfer now from a commuter rail train right onto our service and use the same.
So I can use my Charlie card to get
Yeah.
on. Okay, I think that's an important thing to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now the other thing on the Charlie card, how can I add money to the Charlie card down here? If you go into Boston, they have the kiosk to do that. But how would you do that down here?
Well, right now we're working with MARTA, the Mass Association for the Regional Transit Authorities, to develop a whole new collection system with Scheichenbachmann. It's a German company, so we're in the process of changing the way some of the things used to occur, and we're doing it a little differently on the Cape. You can reload your card by coming into our office, and Kathy, who kind of runs our office.
And she does a wonderful job, by the way. Kathy Jensen is a gift to you.
She is, no question about it. I've worked with her now for 12 years, and she's the best. But she oversees that, and she also oversees the Cape Flyer, all that Cape Flyer marketing and social media activity that you see about the Cape Flyer. So you either go in there, or you can do it on the bus too, if you can reload on the bus too, but we're sort of in the process of changing some things, so you'd have to stay tuned on some of that stuff.
Okay, and indeed I will, because the Charlie card, for me, has been a very liberating thing, because my days of driving into Boston, unless somebody puts a gun to my head, are over. I was, when I worked at Boston Edison, I had an Edison car. It was worth everybody's life, to go through Boston traffic to get where you needed to go, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
I think the only safe way to get around in Boston is to get on the T and then walk around, and then to get there to use public transportation.
Yeah.
So you enjoy what has always been to me, and I was born in Boston, grew up in Boston, a walkable city.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, obviously the pandemic changed the world and changed transportation considerably, but I'm confident we're on the way back and seeing some meaningful improvements now. So, we're doing a lot of neat things, but another thing relative to Bourne is the Bourne Rail Trail, which is a very, very, very exciting undertaking that Nathan Robinson and many, many people within the community have volunteered a lot of time and effort to really advance that discussion. And as you know, as a former board member, we're quite innovative at the RTA, and 5 years ago, we reached out to the Federal Transit Administration and said, I don't want to get too technical here, but we're required to report NTD, which is the National Transit Data Information, every year, which comes back to the region in formula funds. So I was sitting around our table one time, and actually John Fuller, who lives in Bourne, was on our staff at the time and was very instrumental in making this happen as well. We wondered whether or not ferries could report their NTD and bring the money back to our region, because we are the designated recipient. So we pushed and made a case, and Congressman Keating helped, and they eventually said, yes, we can, which resulted in a lot more resources coming to Cape Cod. And so now, with the pandemic and 3 different stimulus bills, Carissa, CARES, and ARPA, we were the only RTA in the state that really received a significant amount of stimulus dollars. So I reached out to Secretary Tesler at the state and said, I'm excited about this Bourne project, but I don't want to be dead 10 years before the thing's completed. It's a 4-phase.
Yeah, I know. All the transportation stuff I've been involved with,
takes
it's like
so long.
8 years to forever to get anything done.
And so this four-phase project, going from the canal to Shining Sea in North Falmouth, I thought, well, let's invest some of those stimulus dollars in helping out the state to advance that and expedite it. Secretary, of course, the fact that we're paying for it, FDA instead of the state, I think they were amenable to that. So Secretary Tesler said yes. So as we speak, I communicated with them yesterday, and we will be going up next week to kind of determine how this whole agreement will unfold, because it's rare when somebody else is paying for a bike path that the state should or has been responsible for funding most of it. So it's really...
Give us a little idea of where the geography of this bike path, where will it begin and where will it... You mentioned the Shining Path. And that's, I think that's at was it the Junction 151?
The County Road in North Falmouth, and Junction 151, yeah. So it's 4 phases, and I haven't been directly involved in the whole development in town other than supporting it at town meeting and supporting it everywhere I can. There's been some really incredible leadership in this community from folks, Nathan, I mentioned, George Slade, Dave McPherson, many, many others, and I shouldn't have started naming names because others have done so much. And it goes from the canal, through, Grey Gables, Mashney, and then through Tohoto and up through Katomet, and connects with Shining Sea. But because there's water and bridges and things that have to be concerned, and then there's the whole military concern about requiring a rail trail off the base for some unknown reason, that's kind of required the advocates to have to meander or else run alongside of the rail right away. And so we're in discussions with the state right now to try to see if we can address that too, with the new bridges coming on. At that time, maybe we can build a new rail line off the base to the Sandwich line that's as active already, rather than the North Falmouth line that's hardly ever used. It looks like a jungle in there. So a lot of things are in the air, but it's been the tremendous support from the people in this community, not just with their wallets, but with their vocal advocacy and fundraising. And so we were very excited at the Cape Cod RTA, and I had a conversation with George about that as our, he's our assistant chairman, and he said, yeah, gee, maybe we can do something along those lines. So we've advanced that discussion. We haven't really announced much of it because you know how these things are, Bill. You get your hopes up, and then at the last minute something goes wrong.
Well, that being said, I think it's important for viewers to know that none of this happens unless the people who are the funders are convinced that the community is in support of it.
Right.
So, and the way that community support is, is identified is letters to the papers, programs at the different committees that, that are looking at public transportation to voice their opinion about what's going on. And as we say all of that, one of the things that I think people are concerned about as we look at this whole integration of public transportation and commuter rail and all of that is that where exactly, or what is the plan for what I'd call parking, in the Buzzards Bay and Bourne community? Would it be on this side of the bridge or the other side of the bridge?
For commuter rail?
Yeah, for commuter rail. Where would you park?
Well, I talked to, in my previous life when I was Deputy Secretary of Transportation at the state level, you always heard that. Whenever there was commuter rail discussion, it was like, where are you going to park? And the people that I know that run the commuter rail service up there always say that it's not as big an issue as you think it is. Mm-hmm. Although in Buzzards Bay, where you always have the parking challenges anyway because of the maritime students and all of that.
And they are taking over more and more property.
They are.
Yeah.
You always have the surface. You have a number of options, but that's why we're really improving our public transportation, so that wouldn't necessitate a lot of new parking. But once we get the real go-ahead on the commuter rail, right now we're focusing as the RTA on the rail trail, but once the commuter rail study is almost completed too, that Steve Tupper and others have been working on, a great group of stakeholders from Bourne. Once that's completed, and it will be within a month, I would think, then the planning part goes into play with the commission and others that will be looking at specific parking challenges. So, it's a process, but you know better than anyone, Bill. I always admired, your attention to detail, and as particularly as commissioner when I work with you. And if you keep plodding along and you keep making the case, you can make things happen. And
persistence is very important.
It is, and I've been blessed with a tremendous team, a great team of folks that, as I say, just love to come in every day and make a difference, and that's what we're doing.
Let's talk a little bit, get in the weeds about what can you take on a bus?
Well, one of the challenges, around the country is you can't pile a bunch of bikes on a bus, and usually if you see, you can only put like 2 bikes on a bus. We have
you have the stuff on the front.
Yeah. And we've invested to make that 3 bikes on a bus. So you can put 3 bikes on a bus, but you can, anything that's reasonable, you can bring on the bus. And our drivers are so well trained.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing about our smart dot that I talked about. You hear about these periodic Uber and Lyft incidents where a driver, something terrible happened. Our drivers are trained, and as you mentioned, we get compliments all the time about how courteous they are,
mm-hmm.
how kind they are, how patient they are, because many vulnerable citizens have to rely on our service. And
that's right.
so you have to be patient with some of these folks, and but you can take anything reasonable on the bus.
Okay. Now, one of the things that I found out, I always made a point of taking public transportation whenever I traveled, and in Kansas City, they had express routes that paralleled the regular local routes. Another thing that I discovered when I was in Portland, Oregon, is that they had special pipes that you could vertically mount a bicycle on the inside of a bus, and both of those, were interesting. And of course, in Portland, it was free transportation within a central region, and it did encourage a lot of people, let's say, to use public transportation. But I was more interested in how we integrate some of these ideas like express bus, into let's say to make the let's say the desirability of using it, more interesting. And I wondered if you're doing any surveys to find out anything more about the viability of something like that.
Well, we do a lot of surveys, and to digress a bit, to go to the Cape Flyer, one of the things that makes our Cape Flyer train unique, we have a bike car with 65 bike stands in one car, and tools for people to work on their bikes as they come into the Cape. So that's an innovation. The other thing that we're doing is we have free fare Fridays now on our fixed route. So all of our fixed route from Bourne to Provincetown on Fridays is free. So you can take a bus for nothing all over the Cape on Fridays. And on Wednesdays, seniors 60 years of age and older can take fixed route for free. So I wanted to get that in before I...
Well, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. Yeah, because those are, we're trying to not only express our gratitude and appreciation to the people that, during the height of the pandemic, were depending on us, and our drivers hung in there and provided that essential service. So we're giving, free fare services. As you remember as a board member, our fares is only 6% of our operating budget. It's a $27 million budget, but we're always, every Monday morning and Wednesday afternoon, we sit as a staff and think about innovative ways to improve service. How can we make a difference? How can we make things better? Everybody gives a report on what they're doing, and so I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And we are focusing on the Upper Cape, not only with the rail trail, but with Buzzards Bay and Sandwich and trips to the Market Basket. You can flag down our buses anywhere on Cape Cod. Just flag us down, and we'll stop.
Where it's safe.
Where it's safe. And tell I'm talking to a board member, you know all the rules. But yes, our drivers are trained. Like you can't, certain areas on 28, you can't just pull right over, but next safe spot. So, I just encourage folks to look at our website and call us or contact us at...
Okay. And if they want to contact you, who would they call?
Well, it's capecodrta.org is how you get hold of us. And, our telephone number is 508-775-8504. So Kathy would probably answer that, but we're all at your disposal and able to communicate with any concern that's raised across the Cape.
Now, we've come to the end of this. So what would be the main takeaway that you would want people to have?
I would like to say that, the roadways on Cape Cod were never built to accommodate the volumes of traffic that they're dealing with now. And now we've got pending bridge reconstruction and a lot of other gridlock-related concerns. Take public transportation now that it's free on Fridays. Go out and take a trip on a nice day and go down the Cape to Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet, Eastham. See the Cape, as you have used to traverse the Cape all the time when you were a commissioner, and see that public transportation is accessible, easily accessible, efficient, affordable, and safe. And that's what I always try to encourage folks to do.
Well, I am definitely going to try that. It's a long trip, but it's kind of interesting, and it goes through what I call the settled parts of Cape Cod, because that's what routes do. They try to stay within the population centers, and it's an interesting trip. If you're a people watcher, I would guarantee you'd find out a lot about people by observing them, and in that type of a public setting, and that's always been one of the fun things for me. Of course, when I go into Boston and see everybody on their phone, you wonder, well, whatever happened to your personal contact? But with that, I want to thank you, Tom, for coming on.
Well, thanks.
It's been great for me because I've renewed my contact. I have not seen you in a while.
Yeah.
You look great.
Thank you.
And I wish you well. And I hope that the viewers, now that they've had a chance to hear more about public transportation on Cape Cod, that they'll take advantage of it and use it, because it is a great service. They've got great people that are running it, and I don't think you'll ever find any organization that is more user-friendly and concerned and, say, what I would call committed to providing great service here on Cape Cod. So with that, I want to thank Tom, and I want to thank the viewers for watching another program of here on Bourne TV.